What was the role of slave trade in Portuguese Africa? If you're curious about how the slave trade shaped Portuguese history and its colonies, you're about to uncover some significant facts. Let's explore this complex and pivotal part of history together. The slave trade was a cornerstone of Portuguese colonial expansion, starting as early as the 15th century. In 1444, Prince Infante de Henrique, also known as Prince Henry the Navigator, began selling African slaves in Lagos, marking the beginning of Portugal's involvement in the slave trade. Portuguese explorers initially attempted to capture Africans through direct raids along the West African coast. However, these raids were often unsuccessful due to the military strategies of West and Central African leaders. Instead, the Portuguese shifted to establishing commercial relations with African leaders, trading European goods for slaves, gold, and other commodities. The Portuguese monarchy secured a monopoly over the slave trade along the African coast through papal bulls issued between 1452 and 1456. This allowed them to raid and trade exclusively, limiting access for other European powers. They built trading posts and forts, such as the fort in the Bay of Arguin in Mauritania, to facilitate the trade. The demand for slaves was high due to labor shortages in Portuguese colonies like Brazil, Cape Verde, Angola, and Mozambique. Slaves were used in various occupations, including domestic service, hard labor in mines and metal forges, and working at docks and markets. Some slaves even peddled goods and returned the profits to their masters. The slave trade played a crucial role in Portugal's economic growth. It enabled the exploitation of enslaved labor on plantations and in mines, contributing significantly to Portugal's wealth. The trade also shaped racial dynamics and the legacy of colonialism in the Atlantic world. Portuguese slave traders dominated the early transatlantic slave trade, with a significant portion of enslaved Africans being transported to Brazil. Between 1526 and 1867, the Portuguese loaded over 5.7 million Africans onto ships bound for Brazil, with an estimated 2.2 million captives shipped illegally between 1808 and 1867. The slave trade continued despite growing abolitionist movements in the 19th century. It wasn't until a series of laws were enacted in Portugal between 1836 and 1842, and in Brazil in 1850, that the slave trade was finally banned. However, the legacy of this trade continues to impact societies today. In summary, the slave trade was central to Portugal's colonial and economic activities, shaping the country's history and its relations with Africa and the Americas. It was a complex and multifaceted system that had far-reaching consequences.